Would have worn makeup if I knew I was on camera. Damn it, Cindy, you gotta warn me for these things. I was like, it's a podcast.
Dude, you look good though. You look good. Asian no racist. Sup fam, it's your host Cindy Chu. Welcome back to Creative Queens Podcast. We're recording this episode with listening party inside Canal Street Radio. So today we have our first guest ever. Helen Shih of Overstep Comedy. What up? So they're a diverse, inclusive comedy collective dedicated to increasing representation and kicking ass.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So they've been consistently having sold out sketch shows over at the Pit and was recently featured in Time Out Magazine, New York Times, and was part of the first annual NYC Asian Comedy Festival. So I'm gonna hand it over to Helen to introduce herself.
Love that. Well, you already did most of it for me. That was lovely. Thanks, Cindy. You clearly did your research. Thank you. Yeah, so should we talk about how we met first, maybe?
Oh, fuck. That's right. I have that written down. I'm a noob. Okay, I need an outline.
Okay.
So I met Helen a few years ago through TAP, NY, Taiwanese American Professionals. Shout out. So we were at an event for members of entertainment industry only, and then our mutual friend Emily, who happened to be talking to both of us, she was saying like, "Oh, Helen's a writer. Y'all should talk." And we're like, "All right, cool." And then through other, what was it, Asian American Film Social, right, Albert, and we ended up doing a writers group, and it was that became Asian American Screenwriters Workshop.
Yes.
Yes, and we stayed friends ever since.
Yes. BFFs.
So, how did you get into sketch comedy? And how did you start Overstep? Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, they're related. So I totally fell into sketch comedy on accident. It was never my goal to become a sketch comedy writer. I still want to be a TV writer, and it just so happens that a lot of TV comedy writers just happen to have a sketch background or improv or stand-up, some kind of, comedy background. And so I had written a TV pilot. I was doing a table read for it, which, if you don't know what that is you just get a bunch of actors around a table and then you just read it out loud, basically, so you can hear what it's like. And one of those actors just happened to be starting a sketch team. And so I had never written sketch before. I had been working on this pilot for a year at that point, and I thought to myself, just for fun, let me write something and submit it. And it just happened to get into the show. And I just kind of got sucked into it really quickly. And what's really nice about sketch is that when you're writing a TV pilot, chances are it's probably not going to get made, right? But you just want a good, unless you're like Cindy Chu and you self-produce it and you're a badass. But, most of the time, people who are trying to break into the industry, they just want a really good writing sample. And what's nice about sketch is when you put on a show, you get to see your work come to life, which is really nice. And when you write comedy, you get instant feedback because people either laugh or they don't. So that part's really nice because I could, I work just sitting in folders on my laptop. That's never going to see the light of day. So that's what's cool about sketch. And then Overstep started because Jatin, Chikani, Otterly, Andy Schartzer, and myself, we actually all met in another sketch group. And then we did about 2 shows together, and then through that process, we realized that we just really vibed together, had the same creative and comedic sensibilities, and we decided to embark on our own journey and start our own team, and we pulled in all of our friends, and it's been pretty epic since then. Like, that started February of 2019, and ever since then, it's just been nonstop. Like, we did not plan for the crazy year that we had in 2019, which was we had our first meeting in February. We shot our first digital short in March. We shot another digital short in April. We had our first show at the end of April. And then pretty much since then, we've had a live performance every single month, which was definitely not our intention, but things just kind of shook out that way.
When you were starting off, right, like you were the only female bouncer, do you think that made a difference about anything? How did that work with your dynamic?
When we started out, we were definitely more dude heavy, and we were aware of that, and we pretty quickly pulled in more women, initially just as actors because I needed females in my sketch that I had written, but then, they started writing, which was awesome, and then we pulled in more female writers as well. And so I say our group has always been pretty conscious of keeping it as close to 50-50 male-female as we can. And even when it comes to our host for the show, because sometimes we'll ask a stand-up to host a show, I suggested that, hey, we should switch off so that if we have a male host for one show, our next one should be female. And everyone's been super supportive of that. So it hasn't really been a big deal. I'd say
Very woke of you, yo.
Yeah, no, everyone's really supportive of each other.
So I know that you said it wasn't your intention to have like a show every month and doing the digital shorts. So like, how do you deal with all that? I'm sure it's a lot. What's the process?
It is a lot. Well, I can tell you the process for a show. Maybe we can start from there. So we'll have writing workshops first where we'll all go off and write on our own, and then we upload all our sketches onto one shared Google Drive folder. Our whole group is run by Google Drive and Slack. We're very high-tech like that.
Wait, so how long does that take? Like, how much time do you have to do that sketch and then workshop it, all that?
It depends. Sometimes, over the holidays, we had a little bit of a longer break. So coming into this show, it's January right now. We had a ton of sketches to read through for this round, but sometimes when we've got shows back to back, the turnaround time is pretty tight. But I mean, we're all pretty passionate about what we do, and that's something really nice about our group is that naturally we just like writing and are always, we always have ideas in our head or bouncing ideas off each other. And so that'll be the first meeting, and then we'll have a couple more like that where they're just writing workshops, or we're just, all uploading sketches into this folder, reading them out loud with each other, giving each other feedback, working on them, making edits. And then after about 3 or 4 writing workshops, we vote on our sketches, which I think is something kind of unique. I haven't been in other sketch groups, so I don't know this, but I think most other sketch groups, when you're on a house team with UCB or the Pit or something like that, it's usually a director who's deciding what goes into the show. And one thing that was really important to us is that we wanted to make the whole process as democratic as possible. And so usually it shakes out really well that everyone kind of likes the same sketches, and there's a clear, there's never been too much contention. The vote's always been pretty clear that, these are all of our favorite sketches. So after we vote, we lock in the set list. It's usually anywhere from 8 to 10 sketches a show, and then we go into rehearsals. And so we might find that we need to pull in some people to play some specific roles, and we get guests to come, and that's always really fun. We'll have 3 to 4 rehearsals. We'll have a tech rehearsal where you got to run through all your lighting and music cues and everything in the actual venue where you're performing. And then we have a live show. And so this all happens over the course of usually 3 to 4 weeks. So it's kind of insane. Yeah, this last show that we had at the end of January for the Asian Comedy Festival, that all happened in 2.5 weeks because we were all coming back from the holidays. People were traveling, people were out of town, and so that was just the time we had, and we made it happen. And everyone really pulled through to be present, to get things done a little bit faster than we usually do, but we did it.
So was it Ed that hit you up to do the comedy festival?
Yeah, so we had been performing at the Pit for a while. That's our main venue, and Alan McRae, he is one of the, I hope I don't get his title wrong, but I think he's one of the creative directors there. I think he had noticed that there had been a lot of acts coming through the Pit that were Asian, and we did well. We sold out shows. Ed Prokopsky, who you're mentioning, he has a regular show at the Pit called Unwashed, which is a variety show that's really cool. He'll have a few stand-ups open, a guest that he interviews, usually someone from the entertainment industry, and then he'll close it out with some musical acts. And then, we were there as well, and we were selling out all of our shows. I think, a light bulb went off in Alan's head where he's like, Asians. And so, yeah, the whole festival was produced by Ed Prokopsky, Kate Moran, and Otter Lee, who's also an Overstep comedy. And they put together an incredible lineup of people. When I first saw everyone who got into the festival, I was like, oh, this is awesome. These are, I either know these people and they've been a part of our show, or I've seen them perform, or I haven't seen them perform, but I really want to because I've heard great things about them. And so I think we all know each other somehow because it's a small world, right? How many Asians are there in comedy? Apparently a lot at this festival, as you can see.
That was everybody.
No, that was not everybody. There were still some people who were not at that festival, and it was just awesome for all of us to be all together at one place. It just gave me a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings.
Aww.
Yeah, we were all there watching each other's shows, supporting each other, and I think a lot of us had known of each other, but maybe not ever actually seen each other perform. And so, you know, some of us just had our minds blown, like, this group is amazing, or the stand-up is amazing.
Yeah. So how do your parents feel? Like, I was just like...
That was a good question. That's a good question.
How are your parents feeling? We know, Taiwanese, Asian Americans.
Yeah, so for the longest time, I did not tell anyone what I was doing. And I was actually living with my brother when I first started doing sketch comedy, and I would just leave the house at random times at night with all my hair and makeup done, and he just thought I had a secret boyfriend.
Like, oh, hi.
Yeah. And I was like, no, we just rehearse late at night, and if I'm going into the city, I want to look somewhat presentable.
So how late?
I don't know, maybe like 9 or 10 p.m.
Damn,
Yeah,
that's late. For rehearsal?
Yeah, for rehearsal sometimes. I think it's just like when we could get space or when people were available, because this is with our old group. With Overstep, we're a bit better about that. We rehearse during normal hours. But yeah, for the longest time, I didn't tell my family because I just didn't think they would understand. And I think as first generation Americans, you just tend to compartmentalize a lot of your life from your immigrant parents because you don't think, you just don't want to have to explain to them, and you don't want to face their judgment, because if you're not out there doing something that you know they'll approve of, you just don't want to have to go through that process of explaining it to them, right? But actually, I got advice from my therapist. She was like, you should share how much joy this brings you with your parents. She said they want to know what's going on in your life. And so I've been much better about that lately. I've been sending my parents photos from our shows, like sending them clips. And then, you know, once my brother found out what I was doing.
How long did that take before you actually told them?
That's a good question. I would say I did. I live with my brother, so obviously he found out pretty soon. So
It's not a boyfriend.
It's not a boyfriend. I'm going to sketch comedy rehearsal.
He cried about it. I was like, no, why?
He's like, no, I thought you were finally going to move out of here. No. And then my parents, I think once my brother started going, then he told them. And so, I didn't stay secret for very long, but I think just pursuing anything creative is always scary to immigrant parents because there's not a clear path to success, and they're all about stability, especially financial stability. And so, it helped that I eventually got a full-time job, and so once that happened, they're like, okay, we can relax now. But yeah, so I've been, when our group was featured in Time Out New York and New York Times, I sent them clips of that, and they were really happy for me. And so, yeah, it's been much better since I've been more open about sharing my life with them.
Your therapist was right.
She was. She's like, your parents just want to know you're okay. Aww. Yeah, they just want to keep up with you. And especially because my parents don't live in New York, and so they don't know what's happening to me here, right? They just imagine the worst. So she said, yeah.
Even though you've grown as hell.
I know. Cindy. Don't get me started.
So they haven't been to any of your shows?
No, they haven't. But I would like them to one day. That'd be fun.
I'm glad that they're accepting. Like, I know I hid my shit for a while. A couple years.
Oh, really? A couple years? That's a long time.
When I started acting, this is right out of college, too. So it's like super, like, you're still young enough to feel like you're that childhood ways. So I would go to acting school at night. And then it wasn't until I got to my MFA, which was 3 years later, then I was like, all right, I got it. So obviously I have to tell them. Wow. And I have to tell the world. There's no more secret. Otherwise, same thing, like stability. I was a little embarrassed. Like none of my friends did any of that shit. So there was all that. So So what are some hardships as far as like putting on so many shows, workshops? Like where do you find space and money to do all this shit?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much self-funded, and for our first couple of shows, a lot of times, like, you actually had to pay to do comedy. Like, a lot of...
Where?
Like, a lot of open mics, like, if you're a stand-up and you want to go to an open mic, you have to pay for that sometimes. And if you want to do a show through UCB, it's not that simple. You can't just walk into UCB and be like, I want to have a show. Like, usually you're a student there, the classes cost money, and it's not till you get to a certain level that you can, you're into the community enough to kind of have the clout to have a show. I mean, I have never taken classes at UCB. Overstep is an indie team, so yeah, like all of our props, all of our costumes, that all comes out of our own pocket, basically, and we just get really creative. Dirty secret, Amazon Prime now has a very generous return policy. And then once we sold out a few shows at the Pit and had kind of proven ourselves, then we were able to negotiate a deal with them where we finally started to get a split of the door sales. So it's not like a crazy lucrative amount. No one's going to get rich off of hosting sketch comedy shows, but it does help us with some of the costs of hiring a photographer for each show, getting a videographer to come record our shows, paying for our tech, paying for rehearsal space and things like that. And you learn things to save money. Like if you book a rehearsal space the same day, you get a discount. So usually wake up early and do that. And
So where do you rehearse that?
Oh, so many places.
Share the secrets.
For a while, we were rehearsing in the back of a sushi shop in Chinatown.
Fuck.
Yeah. It just happened. So Otter just happened to go to this restaurant often, and he hosted a comedy show in their back bar, actually. And it was just happened to be big enough space for all of us to fit in there, and so we'd meet there. We used to meet there, and then one of our members, Nina Sharma, she was a former, she was affiliated with the Asian American Writers Workshop, and so once we got that partnership kicked off, it was a huge, huge help to us. Saved us so much time and money just having space for our writing workshops and our rehearsals. And then if we can't get into the Writers Workshop, we'll usually rent Simple Studios or Ripley Greer or something like that, and it's like about $20 an hour same day if you book it. Yeah, peak times and off peak times at different prices. So all these fun things you learn when you do sketch comedy.
So how long do you meet for?
Usually 3 hours at a time. Yeah.
And how often?
At least once a week, if not twice. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a big commitment, and it's not for everyone, definitely. I think improv and stand-up certainly have lower bars to entry, especially stand-up, because it's just yourself, right? Like, you're only responsible for your own body physically being somewhere, and all the content you write is from you, versus when you're in a sketch team, it's a team. We're about like 10 to 12 people each show, and we couldn't exist if we didn't collaborate with each other. We've got writers, we've got actors, and we all do more than just that. Like, we're handling marketing, social media, we're doing press outreach to promote our shows, we've got people in charge of tech cues, sometimes people specialize in like props or costumes if we've got something really specific, and so we all pitch in to do more than just writing and acting. Versus, again, improv, like you don't really need to rehearse for improv because there's nothing scripted. That's not the point of improv, right? Yeah. So again, like it's more people than stand up, but improv, you just need to show up, basically, be present. And sketch just takes a lot of preparation and time, but I also find it more satisfying because I like writing stories, and like if you think about what writing sketch is, you're putting together a single scene, and when you think about writing for TV or you write about film, it's kind of like writing 10 to 20 little sketches that are all tied together that you put together. I don't know, it's kind of a lame analogy, but yeah, it's the closest thing to writing long form.
How do you decide on who directs it, produces it?
Producing honestly comes down to which one of the members has the bandwidth, time, and energy for it. And producing is not, it takes so much emotional and mental energy. Like, if it was just the logistics part, I think I could handle that, but it's a lot of people wrangling, and everyone has different goals, different motivations. People get tired, people get stressed, and just keeping the train on the tracks and making sure everyone's happy is a big job.
So this is per show.
Yeah, this is per show. So we try to switch off, because if one person produced every single show, they would go crazy. And so, especially if it's a show with a really tight turnaround time, then we'll usually want to hand it off to someone who has produced a show before and has that experience. And then for directing, we usually we're lucky that we have really great, again, friends who help us. So Rachel Young directed our last show. She's awesome. Art Kai directed one of our shows. Ed Prokopsky, he's dropped in on our rehearsals and given us feedback. So it's a mix. Sometimes we self-direct, and other times we get outside people to come in. And that's one of our goals for this year, is we'd love to pull in more outside directors, also people of color, and people from underrepresented communities, to really just bring home that inclusion into the group.
So for producing, like, because is it the same as when you would produce a short?
Yeah,
similar things?
Yeah, I would say so. At the end of the day, the producer is responsible for putting on the show. So however they want to delegate tasks, however they want to make sure things are getting done, it's up to them. And I produced the January show for the Asian Comedy Festival, and our group is just trying to get better at delegating tasks so that not so much pressure lies on one person to do everything by themselves. But it's just, there's like a lot of little things that you don't realize are part of the job until you're actually doing it. And so we've tried to create a document called the producer's checklist, so that anytime we hand over the responsibility to someone new, or like maybe someone hasn't produced in a while, that way they're not missing any of the steps. Because I think we've done it enough now where there's a few of us who have produced a couple of shows, and it's just kind of ingrained in our heads now, and we need to find some way to take that knowledge and be able to share it with other people, so that other folks can step up to the plate and get that experience too.
So what would be your advice for people who want to get into sketch?
There's a couple ways to do it. Obviously, you can take a class. So there's UCB, there's the Pit, there's Magnet. They all offer sketch classes. And then, or you can, if you have a bunch of friends who you like and you just want to try it, like, do what we did. Start an indie team. We're not particularly affiliated with any of those schools, and so we're kind of free to take our show where we want to. And then just, start writing. Try it out. Act. Figure out what it is you like about sketch and what you don't. Watch sketches, watch live shows, watch SNL, watch digital shorts, watch old sketch shows. And then if you don't like it, that's okay. Sketch isn't for everyone. If you just want to get into comedy, I would recommend to try, improv or stand-up too, or musical comedy, whatever floats your boat. Kind of just experiment, play, have fun, and figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
What's a hardship that you felt like you wish you knew type of thing?
Yeah, I would say going into sketch comedy, I just didn't know what goes into it. Like, I just wrote something and was like, okay, I'm done. But that's just writing is just the beginning. Then you have to cast it. Then you've got to get all the props and costumes. You've got to get, if you have music cues or like any imagery you want to project, like tech cues on top of that. And then what I like about it is that it's a hugely collaborative process. And I think that's why people who like sketch comedy do it, because when you're writing a screenplay or you're working on a novel, you're mostly writing by yourself, which can get really lonely. And I really like the aspect of having that writer's room. And I know for a fact that like my writing has gotten better because of the feedback of other people and all the workshops that we hold. And I can see other people's writing getting better as a result of these group writers room workshops that we have. And they're also just a lot of fun. It's just a group of friends getting together, reading funny stuff that we've written. And usually, if something's funny, it will, quote unquote, kill at the table read. And we know we have something if people are like giggling and can't keep a straight face through the table read. And so that part's a lot of fun. But then once it gets closer to the live show, there's definitely pressure when it comes to putting on a live production that I don't feel when I'm doing a film shoot. Because if, take doesn't go well when you're shooting something for digital, you can always reshoot it. You might be able to edit it out. You might be able to fix it in post. But when you're doing a live show, it's a live show. There's no take backs. There's no redos. It just is what it is. And it's part of the fun and magic of it, because things have definitely gone wrong in our live shows, and we just kind of roll with it, and the audience laughs, and we recover from it, and I think people kind of enjoy that, because then the audience gets in on the joke too, right? So yeah.
So how'd you get to the pit, or like the process?
Yeah, so that's a good question. With my old group, the group that we all met in, we used to do our shows at the Tank, which does a lot of indie theater, I believe, and then the Pit is a comedy venue, and I think anyone can pretty much submit a show. And so one of our group members was already performing there and knew someone there, and so just kind of told them, like wrote them an email and was like, hey, I have a new sketch group. We'd like to try a show. And that show was like full except for 2 or 3 seats, and I really wish I had bought those 2 tickets just so we could say our show was sold out. Yeah. And we just went from there, and we liked the theater. We were on the Striker stage, which is the big one, and we've just been there ever since. And they've been a pleasure to work with. They support us. They were the ones behind the Asian Comedy Festival, and so yeah, it's been good. It's been a good relationship, yeah. But I know with UCB, if you want to do a show there, I think you have to submit what's called a spank, and they give you a 30-minute slot, and then depending on how that does, then you can move forward. So it's a little bit more of a time-consuming thing versus the Pit. I think anyone can submit a show, from what I know. But it helped that someone in our group already had an existing relationship there.
Being a woman of color, has that affected anything at all as far as sketch? Or even in the audience? Because I've been to the shows, not everyone is Asian American. So like, does that matter at all?
I think I've been really protected in the comedy world in that I started out in an Asian American team, and Overstep is an Asian American team. And sometimes I wonder if I need to push myself out of that comfort zone, because I've done a couple shows independently where I was maybe one of 2 people of color there, and it definitely is different. And I think comedic sensibilities differ as well. And I've had friends who have taken classes at the big comedy schools in New York, and they comment about how they're often the only person of color there. And I think it does affect you creatively on some level. And what I've been really lucky with Overstep and this team is that we get to write jokes that we don't have to explain. That are, as Nina likes to say, it's for us, by us. It's by us, for us. And there's just something really nice about that. And I kind of don't want to leave that, but I feel like I should, just for the sake of my own growth and my own learning and getting to know people outside of the Asian American comedy community here in New York. But so far it's been pretty fun, and I like it. So it's hard to leave this safe bubble.
What I really appreciate as like audience watching is the specificness of the jokes. Like one of them is the early ones when it was referred to, was it Moon Over River? I can't remember. She's a Taiwanese singer.
Teresa.
Yes. That shit was so funny.
Teresa Tang.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you. It's
yes.
like Taiwanese. Yeah, only like a Taiwanese person would really get that shit.
Yeah, I know. I had to explain that to my team because not everyone in my team is Taiwanese. And so I just wrote in the script, like, you know, cue song, Teresa Tang, the moon represents my heart. And I was like, trust me. This will crush the audience. If there's anyone there who had Taiwanese parents or even like Chinese people, like everyone hears that song and they recognize it. And it is so specific. And like I could have never pulled that off if I was on a sketch team with like all white people, right? They'd be like, what is this? And I also learned a lot about other Asian cultures too. We have South Asian people on our team and they write we do a lot of food related things in our group. I think we're all really hungry all the time. And so Jathan wrote this awesome rap about chapati, which I love. And it's fine that I don't like fully know what a chapati is, but I don't care. I'm like, this is just funny. He's rapping about this Indian flatbread and I'm into it. And yeah, sometimes you don't have to fully understand the joke to appreciate it.
It was super great having you. Is there anything else you want to add? Plug your shows. Shit.
Follow Overstep Comedy on social media, on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. We're at Overstep Comedy. And then for Twitter, we are Overstep_comedy. And then our website is weareoverstep.com. We've got a mailing list. Sign up if you want to hear about our next shows. And we also host sketch jams and writing workshops sometimes, so definitely sign up if you want to know when that next one is. And then our next big show is May 30th in Flushing at the Flushing Town Hall. It's called the Crazy Talented Asians Festival and it's going to be awesome. So yeah, follow us to stay in touch.
Dope. Yes. So this episode of Creative Queens Podcast is presented in partnership with Listening Party. Follow the crew on Instagram at Listening Party Presents and at Canal Street Market. And obviously follow us at Creative Queens Podcast. So I will catch y'all next time. Peace out.